Hey guys, what's going on? It's Mike with FormAWin. Super excited. We have a special guest today. We have Talib. He works at SpaceX. He's an awesome guy, an awesome leader. Let's get into it. Awesome, man. So thank you so much for joining us. And for everyone watching, make sure you have a pen, piece of paper. This is going to be an action-packed episode. So Talib, why don't you go on ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Talib. I've been a engineer at SpaceX for about 9 months now. I started right after I graduated, and yeah.
Awesome, man. Where'd you go to school?
So I went to school at Embry-Riddle in Daytona Beach, Florida.
Okay.
So not too far from you.
Yep.
I graduated in aerospace engineering in 2024 and moved out here right after that.
Awesome, man. And then just a little background for everyone watching. FormAWin is all about coaching students to get their first job, excel in their roles, and land high-paying opportunities. So today we have again a special guest. So make sure you're taking notes, you're going through everything, and you kind of reverse engineer where you're at in your career or your journey, and just try to pick up one thing at minimum, one thing out of this call, this interview, and apply it to your day-to-day life to get better results. So with that said, especially going to Embry-Riddle because that was one of my choices too. I mean, it just so happens I'm in Florida, Orlando. It's an awesome state, and then you're out in California now, which is super cool. Did you purposely pick Embry-Riddle?
So it was, to be honest, throughout high school, I hadn't heard of the school before. Then a friend of mine had transferred from the Naval Academy to Embry-Riddle, and they told me about it, and I was like, man, the small class sizes, the really personal relationship with the professors because of the small class sizes, that really sounds like a good spot for me. And so I was going between Georgia Tech, Embry-Riddle, MIT, and not to put myself down, but I didn't get into Georgia Tech or MIT.
That's all
So
right.
I went to Embry-Riddle, and I think it was the right choice for me. Just the small class sizes, being able to like speak to my professors directly, being
Yep.
able to take a leading role in clubs easier, just because there wasn't as many people, really benefited me and padded my resume for sure.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So, kind of going into this now, like we have lots of things that we're going to go through, especially for everyone watching, kind of advice for students, especially starting out in their journey, how to learn the first opportunity, right? So make sure you're taking notes. But let's talk a little bit about what you do as an
Sure.
engineer.
Yeah, so I am a integration and test engineer at SpaceX, specifically for second stage. So our team basically we're in charge of the manufacturing side of the assembly of the second stage of the Falcon 9. So there's a team called responsible engineers that own like the hardware and they're like the experts on individual systems or individual pieces. And then my team is in charge of taking all those pieces and putting them together onto the rocket and making sure that the CAD, the model of the rocket, gets turned into an actual piece of hardware. So all little hiccups and interferences, dropped parts, things that get damaged along the integration path, my team owns fixing those problems, as well as
Awesome.
testing the whole vehicle once it's assembled.
I love it. Yeah. And then, just for students watching, especially when you're studying whatever engineering degree that you have, it's not like a specific degree integration and testing. It's one of the misunderstood things that your degree name. And I mean, this is something that I thought, and I'm sure a lot of other students like yourself, or not you, but those watching, you might have thought that your degree title is what you're going to actually be doing, but it's going to vary based on lots of different factors, right? So did you always know you wanted to pursue integration and test, or was that kind of an opportunity? What led to that?
Sure. So just I wanted to go back one thing what you just said, just
Hmm.
to add on to it.
Yeah.
So I am one of the only AE holding people on my team. Most of my team is mechanical. There's a biomedical engineer on my team. There is a physics PhD on my team. It is super widespread. We have civil engineers. Anybody can get into the aerospace industry
Yep.
and work. But yeah, so like you were saying, I actually through high school thought I was going to do mechatronics, robotics, or material science. And then as I went through college and ended up doing aerospace, I was thinking about design, maybe CFD and modeling. And
Yep.
then I just ended up getting an interview for this position and it matched with what I was doing in my clubs. And they hired me, and now I think I'm probably going to stick with it.
Awesome, man. Yeah. So what led to it now to kind of getting your first role, right? Because I'm sure that there were challenges associated. Did you just stick to mass applications, applying online? What kind of led to it, and what was your journey in that aspect?
Sure, yeah. So I just went with the mass application thing. I probably had 100. I was tracking 160 resumes that I had submitted towards the middle of the last semester of my senior year,
Okay.
and 60 of those were Lockheed.
Yep.
20 of them were Boeing, Blue Origin, Rocket Lab. Anybody I could get a resume into, even like uh, John Deere for manufacturing engineer on their tractors. I dropped some for them too.
There we go.
Anything I could do, I was sending out resumes. And funny enough, I had four like serious interviews, and they were all test engineering or test and integration engineering. And that's just I didn't know at the time, but my resume and my experience just matched those types of positions. And unknown to me, that's the jobs that I was actually applying for. So
Awesome. That's
yeah.
cool. Okay. All right. So then, if like for you, you focus a lot on experiences, getting leadership experience, going really hard with that, and then in the last little bit of your senior year, that's when you kind of said, okay, it's time, right?
Mhm.
Did you did you have any internships leading up to that, or was it mainly just based on project experience?
Sure, yeah. So I had a little bit of luck when I was in high school, and I had a connection to a Yanmar subsidiary that built engines in St. Pete, Florida. And they took me on as a high school intern, working on building instructions for certain engine configurations and a little bit of test stuff. I built some test panels for them and
Hmm.
worked on some CNC routing stuff for them. And from there, I was able to kind of hopscotch that into working for this company that designed solid rocket motors for hobby grade Cesaroni Aerospace. And I did CAD for them. And then just from there, I had just enough experience on my resume along with my projects. I was the safety contact for my school's rocketry club. And just with those together, I was able to get that on and had enough experience to kind of present my knowledge of testing
Yep.
and integration. And worked out.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I can definitely see how all that's kind of stacked up and compounded, and then that led to you having the expertise. A lot of people don't have that kind of expertise,
Mhm.
and I think the key thing for you too, and for students watching, this might be misunderstood or just not really focused on in clubs or projects, right? When you take that lead position in the real world, in the real engineering world, you're going to be taking that role, being the lead or the IPT or just like the person in charge of that specific thing, just like you were saying for safety, right? You were the safety POC. When you guys are having a role in a project, make sure you're kind of taking that, owning that, and then you're like that POC for that one specific thing. You're not the master coordinator for every little thing. You're that one specific person, because then that's going to translate. That's going to show ownership, especially when you go to an interview and things like that. So you guys just need to kind of put your head in that. I don't know if you want to add to that, but
Yeah. So what I like to say to people is find a spot in a project where you are so in charge of one thing that if you're out of town and somebody needs to do something with that thing, it can't be done. Like
yep,
you want to be in a spot where you need to be called when you're out of town for them to do something. And
yep,
it's a position that you want to be in, but your club doesn't want you to be in because they don't want to be relying on one person, but that's what you want to do to be able to say, I
yes,
own the system. I'm in charge of this thing.
yep. And and then I mean, almost kind of sort of, same way in the industry too, because then that means that you're slightly less replaceable, and that's
Yeah.
super important. That's everything that you're just saying, right? I mean, it's great.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you need to be doing. So I love
Mhm.
that. That's great, and especially if you're starting college too.
Yep,
But
absolutely.
let's kind of go into some struggles that you overcame while in college. I'll kind of leave that open ended.
Sure. Yeah. So for me, so Embry-Riddle required us to live on campus in the dorms for the first 2 years.
Hmm.
And for me, that was a really big struggle because I couldn't cook my own food. This is probably a very unique situation, but I love cooking. I'm really a fan of making my own food and experimenting in the kitchen.
Yep.
And kind of having that taken away from me, especially obviously this was during COVID and all that stuff. So we
Hmm.
couldn't go outside and do stuff. We were
Yep.
stuck in tiny dorms, 2 people to a dorm, one bathroom for 4 people. And that stress of not being able to have my outlet of cooking really made me question after my first year, like if this was what I wanted to be doing right now. And
Yep.
luckily, my second year, I was able to get a dorm with a kitchen, and that took so much stress off of me. But getting through that first year through COVID and not being able to cook was a really big struggle for me. And I'm very glad I was able to push through it. Luckily, my family's from St. Pete, Florida. I was in Daytona Beach. It was not super difficult for me to come back home for the weekends and be able to
Hmm.
cook for my family and, use my outlet for,
Yeah.
creative and just my relaxing method. But yeah, I saw so many other people go through similar struggles, not necessarily with cooking, but just their outlet was not accessible to them anymore, and it made them not able to finish that first year. And yeah, so I'm very thankful I was able to push through that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can definitely relate to that because I'm also a fan of my own food and prepping and doing all that stuff. So I can definitely understand that struggle. In
Yeah.
terms of, I mean, it sounds like your resume. So kind of going back to that, it sounds like your resume was kind of in tip-top shape, but that was obviously from the previous experience, and you probably had a good spin on it. What are some resume tips in your own kind of forte? I don't know. Shoot.
Yeah, so resume discussion was a very popular point of conversation at my school. It was
Mhm.
very any career building thing you go to, any general club meeting you go to, people are always talking about their resumes. And I don't know if that's common to other schools, but it was very like if you meet a person and you're on a talking terms with them, like you send them your resume, you're like, what do you think? What do you think needs to be tweaked on this? And then so constantly, you've gone through at this point 4 years of people
Yep.
giving you feedback on stuff, saying like, get this project from high school off of here, like maybe that was good to get you into college, but at this point, that's 6 years old and
Hmm.
is, the knowledge of a ninth grader, level that up a little bit, put more onto it. You need a personal project and you've got a year and a half till you're going to be starting to do applications. You need to start a personal project, and get that on here, get that working. And yeah, but yeah,
Yeah,
and so
no,
so
definitely.
so getting that clean formatting, making sure that that resume is polished and has been seen by as many people as possible, so that you've gotten feedback from 1,000 people. And I'm not even kidding. Feedback from 1,000 people. Don't take everybody's feedback. Not everybody has, not everybody has
Yeah.
good feedback, but just get differing opinions from different groups and then test out different resumes. I went through probably 30 or 40 like solid iterations of my resume with trying out different projects just because you can't put everything on your resume. You got to experiment with what projects actually matter and what don't. And especially when you start looking at other people's resumes as well, you might start seeing that like certain school projects that you did in classes other people are talking about. And
Yes.
if you see 20% of people have that same project that you did on there, take it off. Put something else on there
Yep.
instead. Or make sure that yours is detailed enough or different enough that it shows that you stand out. But you want to make sure your resume does not have the same content as everybody else's.
Yeah. So I mean, that definitely opened up a lot that I want to say, and then we'll kind of get into some interviews and kind of building relationships. But some I wanted to say, especially with what the FormAWin community is about. Resumes, they're super critical and super important, but sometimes people spend too much time on that. Then that's all that they spend time on trying to perfect it, even though they don't have the experience to perfect. But they're, going back and like, this is why I'm not getting a job and things like that, right? And something else that we kind of say is if you ask 100 different engineers, which I'm sure you did, to review the resume, well, you're going to get probably 100 different pieces of advice. And, you need to kind of take it, then apply it, see what's going to work, see what's not going to work, and kind of just make it work going down that path. And, I mean, I just love everything you said because being around that kind of community and being around people that are going to, be intentful with their review of it and progressing and being around people that want to get into a position and grow and be a leader, right? I mean, it's super important to surround yourself with people like that. So I love that. And I mean, that's awesome. So now kind of going into that too, right? How do we network? How do we build relationships? How did you build relationships? What are some like key things that you focus on to make that happen?
So I was very lucky in the club that I kind of threw myself in with at school, ERPL, the Experimental Rocket Propulsion Laboratory. We had a very good fundraising chair and a very good PR chair, and
Okay.
they got us tours with several different organizations. We toured the Blue Origin manufacturing facility. We toured different places at NASA. We would go down to Cecil Spaceport for our testing, and we got to speak with industry experts. We had Jared Isaacman in our lab. He signed some of our rockets. We had several of the Inspiration 4 astronauts other than Jared Isaacman in the lab. Uh, we've had a couple of different NASA astronauts in the lab as well, and just being a part of a good organization that has that already has the contacts is a really good way to kind of cheat the system, kind of get
Yeah,
around that roadblock of making your first connections, as well as being able to have close relationships with your professors. Several of my professors that I TA'd for or graded for, they have been in the industry. They know people, and when you prove yourself to them, they'll put their neck out for you.
yeah,
They'll send you contacts. They'll say, "I got a buddy who works at Lockheed. I got a buddy who works at SpaceX. Let me get in contact with him. You've proven yourself
yep.
to me. You're reliable. You're not going to make me look like a fool. So I'll hook you up."
Yeah, and this kind of goes into interviews, I'm sure. Just like, I mean, I can tell you're a good person, obviously, right? So this goes into interviews, but to kind of just back on that, to build relationships with people, and then for everyone watching, just kind of assess your relationships in your life, right? Are you building relationships to just get something out of the other person, or is there a good backbone behind it? Because then that's when people will go to neck for you if they can see that you're genuine and you're a good person and you're trying to just make it happen, but also progress and add value to their lives, your lives, the lives of others around you, because it's all full circle. If you're just going just to reach out to people and saying, "Hey, can you get me a job?" You don't even know them. You know what I mean? Like there's just no value. So I mean, I love what you said too, because you did all this stuff without thinking about it. But some people are kind of just like not thinking about just trying to be a good person. So you were just a good person, and then things probably kind of just flowed naturally just because of that, right? So that kind of goes into
Absolutely.
like that kind of goes into interviews too, right? I mean, a lot of people struggle with interviews, but what's your take on it, or like how did you prep yourself maybe, or what? Just kind of talk to that.
That's a tough one, especially because I've kind of started to group, at least for AE. I'm not sure about the other disciplines, but for AE, there's kind of two genres of AE right now. There's the old aerospace and the new aerospace, and those have two completely different interview styles. If you're interviewing for something like NavAir, NavC, Lockheed, Boeing, it's a lot of that like personality type stuff, along with basic engineering stuff. And it's so hard to prepare for those because it's difficult, at least for me, like trying to explain a, a time that I failed, explaining interpersonal conflict. That's tough for me. And so I always have to like prep myself for those. And I Google those common interview questions and I'll write out those responses for them and I'll have them, and I'll screen off to the side just so I can quickly remember and reference those because I'll talk myself in circles. I don't know if I've been doing that so far, but
No, no, not
I'll
at
do
all.
that when I tell stories sometimes. And I'll trip myself up and I'll realize that that didn't make any sense halfway through. And so I have to write out everything for that. And then for the new age aerospace stuff, it's very focused on the engineering side for it. When I interviewed with SpaceX, it was very little about the tell me about a personal conflict stuff and a lot on where's the highest stress in this beam. If we applied this loading, where will it buckle? If we have, use the ideal gas law, stuff like that. And for that stuff, you kind of just got to know your stuff. It's the basics, but you kind of got to know it. And still, I have a cheat sheet. I put my basic equations up there just so I don't just so I don't look silly during the
Yeah,
interview.
yeah,
Um,
no, definitely.
yeah, but it's about that thought process, and they want to know, can you think like an engineer and prove your basics? And then once you get an actual in-person interview, that's kind of when they're judging your character. But
Yeah,
yeah, I don't
no,
know.
just yeah, no, definitely, and a big thing just for students, and especially with the FormAWin community and our clients, and I mean anyone watching, right? If you're a student looking for your first position, these type of things you need to prepare for. But just like you said, you need to know your stuff. So all that prep work is kind of done beforehand. Years beforehand, leading up to it. Are you going through freshman, sophomore, junior year, and all your clubs and doing everything with intent, or are you kind of just skating by it? And that's going to show in the interviews when you go to that, right? And like at least for the behavioral and the personal side of things at least with that, that's controllable in some sense for in your personal life. If you lead by example, right, that's easy to take control of. Technical stuff you might have to get caught back up with in some way, shape, or form, but it's possible. So I love your note on that, and I love that piece. And we've kind of talked a lot about advice, and we've gone through basically the whole curriculum of how to get a job, I think. But what's one additional piece of advice for students, just starting out in their journey, looking to build their experience and really trying to find that next opportunity.
I mean, I think I would jump back to just those resume builders, like having a project, even if you might be in a spot where your school doesn't have any clubs that are interesting to you, and
Hmm.
that's not an excuse to not have good projects on your resume. Do your own project, make a breadboard, but do something and make it so that it's an involved project, not just following a wiki instruction on how to make an LED blink, right?
Yep.
Actually have a goal and do as much as you can and document that whole process. Make it
Yeah.
clear your hiccups, your shortcomings, things that you learn. Make sure that's all documented and clear, and that your results are clear. Make it so that you're doing a lab report basically on your own
Yep.
project. But as boring as it sounds, you're gonna enjoy that in the future when they ask you detailed questions and they're saying, "This is what you wanted to do. How did you prove that you did that? What was the steps you took to get there?" And you already have it all outlined.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. And I think the biggest thing out of that too is documenting.
Mhm.
Documenting everything, even schoolwork, classwork, projects, right? Because then when you're ready to make a portfolio of some sort, you actually have something to put in there, and then you have something to show people, and then you can bring that to an interview. You can bring that to people, and then that's gonna put you in a competitive edge compared to someone that doesn't have that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So love that point. And kind of transitioning into you now and your goals and your life. So what are some of your goals for the future?
Oh man. At some point, I think I'd like to lead a team here. Um, I haven't quite decided yet. I like being an individual contributor, and there's a lot of stress put on the leads. I work second shift at night, and so
Okay.
I'm by myself a lot during, and we're manufacturing, and so we run into an issue. I wake my lead up a lot, and so I don't know if I want to be in that spot, but I do love leading the team. I was a scout growing up, and so leadership, is something that I've been involved with since I was a kid. And so it almost feels like something like naturally like I should do. But I haven't made that, I haven't made the decision yet. I've only been here for 9 months, 10 months or something like that.
Yeah,
I've got time to figure it out. But I think I'd like to lead a team here. I want to stay in the space industry. It's fast moving. It's interesting.
I
and
love it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, one day at a time, you'll definitely get there. I mean, just by your previous experience, again, who you are, kind of everything we're running through here, then there's a reason where you're at where you're at, right? And that's all gonna compound and transcend into being a leader at some point, one way or the other. So I think you just keep doing what you're doing, and they're gonna want you in some way, shape, or form to be a leader. So we'll see what happens. And I mean, I'm excited to see what happens too.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I kind of completely transitioning, not really, 'cause I think this should be integrated in everything we do. Fitness. How important is fitness in your life, or how important should it be, or just talk about fitness?
Yeah, so I wear a Garmin, track my fitness. Um, I don't do as much activity as I should. That's the short of it. I just got back from Georgia where I was hiking, and I do a lot of hiking around here, but not as much as I want to. I'm probably 2 to 3 days a month is what I'm hiking right now, and I need to find more time to get to the gym. I really do, but it is so important staying fit and focused. At work, we have a 2 o'clock push-ups. We go down to the landed booster out front of work, and we do our push-ups every day. We have Some of my coworkers used to do pull-ups right in the office. They put a pull-up bar up on the beams, and they do their pull-ups there. It is critical to keeping your mind focused, because if your body hurts and your body's unhappy, you can't focus at work. Especially when you're in an industry that is very demanding of you and you're working a lot of hours and it's a stressful situation. You don't want your body to be unhappy at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. And that's like the first I heard of that, honestly, and I love that, like the 2 p.m. push-ups or whatever. So
Yeah.
so so like, is that kind of influenced by the team, or is that kind of like man down or like mandated from the top up, or like where did that come from?
It was just a manager of one of the teams just sent out a calendar invite that was just like, everybody that I know, hey, we're gonna do push-ups. At 2 or 3, I don't know when, but we're gonna do push-ups every day. Come out here and do it. And if you can increase the number of push-ups you're doing by one every
Yep.
week, if you can start off doing three, and by next week you can do four. By the end of the year, you're doing like 60. something like that.
Yep.
That's an amazing game,
Indeed.
just in a year. And it's really getting that starting point and sticking to it because I look back every year and I go, man, if I had been sticking to it more, I could be calisthenics is something that I keep trying to get into. And I keep going, I'm like, if I stick with it last year, by now I could probably do this. Oh man,
Yep.
if I had done this year, I could be doing this by now. And it's hard to stick to it, but it's very important too.
Yeah. Yeah, no, a
Yeah.
1000%. I mean, it's definitely critical and it's hard, and
Mhm.
then some that we try to live by, especially with FormAWin, and that we try to teach is, like anything that's hard is worth doing. Anything easy, just like when's the last time that we did something hard and like felt bad about it, right? We always feel good after we do hard things. When we do easy things, it's kind of like, all right, cool, but like you don't feel confident. You don't feel like you're moving the needle forward in your life, right? So I
Mhm.
love that. And just something else with that 2 p.m. thing. And then for everyone watching, you know, like this can apply to fitness, but also just anywhere to make yourself stand out, improve the culture. All that stuff weighs super heavy, especially when you're looking for positions, growing, or if you're in your position, how to stand out, get promoted quicker. I mean, you don't necessarily got to do that, but I mean that's one way to be creative and unique. So I love it. Now let's go back into the mind of a student, right? I'm a student. I need to make my family proud. I'm graduating soon. I need to get an internship. I need to get a job. What's something that's like overlooked, you know, that's kind of not really focused on, that might need more attention, that deserves more attention? What's something overlooked?
For me, I think it's financial literacy.
Okay.
In my opinion. And that's just speaking from my own experience because boy, am I trying to figure stuff out. Just like dealing with, at least for me, just like investing and stuff like that, just like trying to get myself on track to be able to retire and, have the financial future that I want to have. And I didn't really, and it's my fault. I could have taken, courses in college to learn about that stuff, but I didn't. And so I'm kind of playing catch up now. And I was telling myself last year, I was like, well, I don't really have the money yet to be doing stuff with it. So I'll wait till next year. And now it's next year. And I'm like, I should have been doing this last year. Almost the same with working out. It's
Yep.
always,
Yep.
I should have been doing this last year. If I would have started last year,
Yep.
so I would
Yeah, no, I
say,
love that. That's
yeah, the people that understand how the markets work and they understand investing like
mhm.
before they come into a real job, they're already ahead of me. And I reach out to them for help all the time. And I feel silly. I'm like, what is an option? What is it? I don't know. What is the difference between that and a stock? I'm like, I don't get it. And I'm playing catch up. And so if you're still in school and you have time to figure that stuff out, I would do it.
Yeah, definitely. I fully support that. Yeah, I mean, like it's super important, especially, and that's just something that's always going to grow, and you constantly improve your knowledge, investing in yourself, and just learning and growing, being around the right people, getting around new information, new people, new experiences, all that stuff. So I love that. Now, this is going to be the last kind of tip and trick, but I'm a student. How do I find a job? Easy, quick, and fast. Shoot.
Oh man. If you know somebody, that's a great option. I would leverage that as much as you can. I would say people that have a referral from somebody have a much larger chance to get in, which is an unfortunate situation. It sucks because sometimes you just don't know anybody. But if you don't know anybody, that's not a reason to not or to give up. But just keep applying. Apply to the same position every 4 months. They're not gonna like blacklist you from that position. If that position's still up, it means they haven't hired anybody for it yet. And just because you were rejected the first time doesn't mean that you weren't a good applicant. Sometimes that auto rejection just happens. Change up your resume a little bit, put it in again. Give it a couple months, maybe don't spam it, the next day. But um, a rejection the first time, especially an auto rejection, is not a real rejection. It's just a try again later.
Yep. I love it, man. I love it. This has been amazing. And then just in some else, what are some of your hobbies outside of work? I know we talked about hiking a little bit, cooking, all fun stuff that I love and support as well. But do you have any other hobbies or anything?
Sure, yeah. So hiking is a big one. But I'd say probably most of my free time goes to various like tabletop role-playing games, which, it's a pretty stereotypical nerdy answer, but I'm a big Vampire the Masquerade player, Pathfinder, D&D, all that kinds of stuff. And lets me be creative and still connect with my friends back home. And so we try to hop online once a week and you know
Awesome.
talk and
Cool,
waste
man.
time.
That's all right. You need to unwind and you need to feel good, and that stuff is fun and super cool.
100%.
You know, last question I got for you in this interview. If you could go back to your younger self, maybe as a freshman or sophomore, what's one last piece of advice you'd give yourself?
Oh boy. Goodness, that's a good one. Man, I would probably try to have a better outlook for like what kind of jobs I was looking for, just because I didn't really know like at all what was out there until I started applying, and like you don't want to get yourself into a spot where you're like have your eyes set on a certain thing, but just kind of knowing what your options are. And I wish I had that list of like companies 2 years before I made it. I wasn't like aware of most of the companies out there until my senior year when I was like, I need a job. If I had been tracking that sooner, I think I would have had more interview opportunities than I did.
Gotcha. Yeah, man. Well, everyone watching, listen again, rewatch this, take notes. There's plenty of stuff to go in here that you can apply or change in your job search strategy or your interview strategy and everything, right? So make sure you change out of this video. Don't let this just be another video. Go out, accomplish your goals. Thank you so much for joining us, Talib. And I'll see you all later. Go form a win, and I'll see you guys later. Take care.
Thank you,
Bye,
Michael.
everyone.
Mhm.